Welcome to the Student Kitchen. I'm Georgina McLaren and we're here today with Councillor James Joyce, who's the Deputy Leader of Norfolk County Council. So James, tell us a bit about your role within the council.
As you said, I'm the Deputy Leader here. I've been the Deputy Leader since May. I do that and I'm a Lib Dem. The leader is a chap called George Nobbs, who's Labour. However, although you might think that's my main role, being Deputy Leader here, I'm actually the lead member for Children's Services, which takes in command of all the schools and all the safeguarding of children. And it's not just children. You might, when you say safeguarding children, you might think that sort of ends when you are 18. But for me it doesn't, it goes through. So if you're in full-time education, it goes through all that period, so it can be up to 25. So that's what I do, safeguarding most of my time. And so I get involved in lots of different cases.
You're also involved with the Living Well Healthy
That's right.
in the communities.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about what that project is?
Well, Living Well is all about, well, it's about getting, from my point of view, it's for children and making sure getting the younger generation equipped for the whole of their lives. And Living Well is all part of that. It's how you're making sure that they have the right sort of understand what food's about, what we don't really need a society which is going forward for instant food. We need people to understand that from, like my generation, I come from a generation which was born just after the Second World War. My parents came through the Second World War. I wasn't born in the Second World War, I was just born a year after it. And through that period they wanted to change something different. They'd gone through a horrible period, so they were looking for a brave new world, and they wanted people to live in the countryside, they wanted healthy and all this sort of thing. So that's how I was brought up. Current society, with the internet and everything else, is making society a bit more insular. They're on their own, not as joined up together as they used to be. And that's what I want to try and encourage all the time, so people to stand up and actually do things.
So as part of our Student Kitchen project, which is part of Money for Life UK project, we're looking at teaching students how to cook on a budget. What sort of things within the healthy well-being would that
An impact on all of it.
Yeah.
Okay, because unless we know that children are coming into this world and they are being bombarded by different sort of, is it pressures or different sort of influences, and that can be what is put into food. That can be loads of different ways, and you've somehow got to actually get people to actually go back to basics and understand what food is about. And food is about actually giving you energy, and everything else building you up. And if you actually get loads of, let's say, sort of preservatives or E's or this or that, and that's there just for the colouring, eventually if you have that, it will have some effect on you. All right, your body is basically there to actually take things in, to get energy and put it out again. All right, and that's what it's about. And if you start filling it with all these things which are not quite are they natural? Nothing's unnatural, right? But if it's not something which isn't normal, what our body is used to over millions of generations, then things will happen. And that's what's happening at the moment. So we've got to go back to basics, and why we've got to try and find ways of getting food and getting people interested in food. So they're nice and healthy.
Yeah, and that is one of our main aims of the Student Kitchen, is to teach young people how to cook food that is good for them and that isn't straight out of the packet. Do you remember the first meal you cooked when you were a student? Do you remember, or when you left home for the first time and you had that independence and you had to cook for yourself for the first time?
I think probably the first time I tried to cook for them was a complete disaster, because it was probably in something like the Scouts or the Cubs, on that sort of thing. And I can remember in those ridiculous days where you had some sort of pastry thing which you wrapped around a stick, and it was sort of, you baked it over a fire, and it was charcoal in the end by the time you got to eat it, that sort of thing. Yes, so I can remember going through all those sort of things. With my mum, we used to help her cook, and as I say, I come from a generation, my mum was born before the First World War, So she was brought up in that period where people did cook, and so I learnt that, and she cooked, all right. And I came from a family where the father went out to work, the mum stayed at home. So that's my background. So I come from that generation where people have actually hands-on cooking. When you came home from school, you saw your mum doing things. So that's what I come. So it's natural. Yeah. And that's not so. Unfortunately, it's not so natural now. Whether it's right or whether it's wrong, I'm not going to say. But it's what society's happening at the moment. You can't stop society.
There are over 17,000 students at the UEA, and then over 2.5 million students enrolled in the UK at universities at the moment. What are your top tips for students to eat well and eat healthily?
Top tips to eat well and eat healthily. Look at what you're eating, understand what you're eating, because by the time you're at university, hopefully you'll be able to read what's on the packet. And that will tell you, and if it's lots of these, it's lots of this, it's lots of that, okay, you can have it in, understand, but if you live on it permanently, it's going to affect you, alright, okay. I would say buy fresh fruit, have fruit. I like fruit, always have liked fruit. I know my daughters didn't particularly like fruit, but my grandson does like fruit, so it maybe goes in swings, I don't know, alright, just buy fresh things. Personally, I never say you don't like anything.
Always be willing
Always
to try.
be willing to try, but it's not even trying. It's, I can remember sort of, I went through fads of not liking things, alright? And I wouldn't eat this and I wouldn't eat that. There's still probably a couple of things I wouldn't necessarily go if it was on a menu and buy it. One of those is probably tapioca and things like that, because I remember those at school. Really thick set tapioca. It's like wallpaper paste, sorry. But that sort of stuff, alright? But that sort of thing. But anything else, I don't mind. Certain things, obviously, I know, like anybody's body, you know you eat something and you might like it, but you know the effect it's going to have, so you try to stay clear of it. But that's, that's practice, all right? That's life. Know what you like and eat it, all right? But make sure, try and do it, see how it's made and do it yourself. All right?
Thank you for talking to us today.
Okay.
You've been watching The Student Kitchen, and I've been with Councillor James Joyce, who's the Deputy Leader of Norfolk County